Hello everybody, welcome back to Bag Only. This is of course my inventory only Ultimate Iron Man here on Oldschool Runescape, where I'm not using any additional storage, basically just using my inventory and my equip screen. So that means no POH stuff like the costume room, no stash units, death piling, no looting bag, no rune pouch, no other miscellaneous bag, container, sack, coffer, interface, all that stuff. If you tuned in last episode, you'll know that our skills are kind of where we want them to be now on the account. We chased that illustrious level 90 herb lore we've been going for nearly 2 years now. We powered through it by doing hours and hours of Herbie Ball, like 100 hours last episode and some more the episode before. We're now rank 200 and something in Hunter, just chasing that herb lore level, and we also smashed out level 99 prayer finally as well. So our combats are fully maxed, we're fully 126, 99 in all of them, and our skill total is like 2220 something coming into this episode, so we're around about 50 levels from maxing. You'd think at this point then the sensible thing would be to grind out these remaining 50 odd levels, unlock that amazing max cape, but however that's not actually going to be the plan for now. As I'm sure you know if you've checked out this series before, herb lore is the ridiculous hurdle for us in terms of the road to maxing this account, as gathering seeds and farming herbs the natural way is painfully slow to do with our account limitations. As I mentioned last episode, however, there is a new herb lore training method dropping later this year alongside part 2 of Varla entitled the Island of Aldarin, which we currently don't know anything about, and when that arrives in the game I'll decide whether maxing this account is actually going to be feasible or not. I've no problem grinding out all these other skills we have left, even the normally slow ones like agility and glass blowing for crafting, if herb lore itself actually becomes a viable option to train, at least more viable than the current 10k an hour or something I can get doing the current method. If not, if it ends up being absolutely terrible XP an hour, then maybe maxing won't really be on the cards, but like I say, I don't really want to grind out the other skills I have left that have no real benefit being level 99 over where they are now if we can't make the complete max cape itself. So we'll leave maxing for a bit, we'll work on some PVM. I want to introduce a brand new goal for the account now in terms of PVMing, and that is going for the Infernal Cape. Now this item may be approaching 7 years old in Oldschool RuneScape, but it still remains one of the most difficult PVM feats to overcome for any account type, as well as the cape itself actually offering incredible stats. Not only will an Infernal be a really cool and prestigious item to own on the account, but the journey to even get to the Zuck attempts should make for some very interesting, challenging and varied content throughout the series. We're going to have to take on the whole game, slayer monsters, bosses, dungeons, raids and mini-games to get all the different pieces together and the supplies to take on the challenge. Luckily, I already have a lot of the prerequisites completed on this account. For example, I've already defeated a regular Jad in the normal fight caves and sacrificed the fire cape to gain access to the Inferno permanently. I've also maxed out all my combat skills, including prayer, to get the most from our limited potions we'll be able to take inside. I have the herb lore level to make all the potions and supplies I'll need, from brews and restores to the range pots and staminas, and we already have a number of the gear pieces that will make our final Zuck setup, from the Ring of Suffering to the Arim switch, the occult necklace. We're just missing a few key items and our whole range set. Now realistically, unless you're absolutely insane at the game, there's only really 2 gear setups you can take to get an Inferno clear these days. You either go with the Bowfer and the full crystal from the gauntlet, or you go with the twisted bow and standard ranged armor from Chambers of Xeric. Now, I think it's fair to say that going the gauntlet route for the Bowfer and the crystal is far more reasonable and reliable than trying to camp Chambers of Xeric until we pull a twisted bow, so that's going to be the gear setup and route we take for this account, but there's also other things we need. Speaking of Chambers of Xeric, we do need the Rigor and Augury prayer scrolls before we take on Zuck, because they're just such a huge upgrade for your ranged and mage DPS. Both the prayer scrolls are the same drop rate, both being the most common item you can get from Chambers, and both the prayers, Rigor and Augury, actually do work inside the gauntlet itself if you have them unlocked, so it makes the most sense to go to Chambers first, unlock those, use them to help us kill Hunlif and get our Bowfer and Crystal, and then head to the Inferno after both. Now if you scout easy Chambers of Xeric, you can definitely get clears with a simple whip, blowpipe, crossbow and mystic setup, some really entry level gear that we could go grab really quickly and go straight to the raid, but I want to do a kind of different route to get to Chambers to do some more interesting stuff along the way. Primarily I want to pick up an Osmumten's Fang from TOA first, just because it's such an incredible melee weapon, it's so accurate and so strong. I feel like it'll help us a lot in killing Olm and all the bosses before it. But that presents its own issues, of course, because if you want to go do Tombs of Amasket, then you really need a stab melee weapon, because everything's so weak to stab specifically, to the extent where actually using a Keris Partisan on stab is more DPS at most of the bosses than using an Abyssal Whip. So because of this, we're going to have to source ourselves a reasonable to achieve stab weapon first to go to TOA, to be able to clear it, to get ourselves a Fang, which is an even better stab weapon that we can then take to Chambers of Xeric. Like I say, none of this is essential for account progression. We could simply get a whip and go straight to Chambers now, work on our prayer scrolls, and get towards that Inferno quicker. But with this strange little route I've kind of come up with in my head, I just feel like we can go to a couple more interesting places, get some more log slots, kill some interesting bosses, and go into Chambers with some different gear. Now, for some reason in this game, there are a ton of slash and crush weapons available relatively easily, but all the stab weapons seem to be quite long grinds, or they seem to be locked behind difficult bosses. Even the baseline dragon sword is kind of annoying to get. You either have to kill 2,000 worms on Slayer task, which would take us weeks, or 10,000 worms off Slayer task that might take us about the same time. That's quite a lot of grinding for a weapon that has worse stats than a dragon simi that we can buy repeatedly from a shop, but like I say, there just aren't that many stab options available. Another option is to head to Zami and get ourselves a Zami spear and turn that into a Hasta, which would be probably the best in-slot stab weapon before the Fang itself. However, for this one we need to get full Carols and an Arc Light by grinding Slayer and grinding Barrows. The third high-level option is of course the Abyssal Dagger. It's around a 1 in 500 from the Abyssal Sire. Again, another boss you can only do on Slayer tasks, so we'd have to go grind out a Black Mask. We don't have any Slayer points on our account right now. However, the saviour for this account has come in the form of an update to some new Varla content. One of the new weapons inside the new dungeon Perilous Moons was originally released as only a crush weapon, the dual machetes, but has now been given a very high accuracy stab attack option. Now there are some downsides to this weapon in the fact that you need to roll your accuracy twice every hit, so you do lose a little bit of DPS, but even with that taken into account, this is still much better than an Abyssal Whip at TOA, and far more easily achievable than any of the other stab weapons we've talked about so far. But in order to clear Perilous Moons, we're going to need some tank gear first, so we're going to head to Barrows, get a tanky top and a tanky bottom. You've already seen us there grabbing our D boots back, our best in slot melee boots right now, but we certainly need tank armor as the bosses inside Perilous Moons have a unique attack mechanic where they hit you 3 times, so defense is really important if you want to get good clears. So in theory, it should only be about 90 Barrows to see 1 tank leg and 1 tank top. But there we go, our 13th chest just came in and we got ourselves some Torag plate legs, pretty much exactly what we were looking for. One of the 2 items we need, a tank bottom, just need a tank body now as well. That's item number 20 as well out of 25, and that's full Torag complete. So we'll continue with Barrows till we get a body piece. Hopefully it's a Guthans just for collection log's sake. And if we receive a Carol's top or bottom in the meantime, we'll keep those to be our range gear for raiding. Whoa guys, there we go, 26 chests in, we get our second item and it's once again something we don't have, the Guthan's helm. It's not something we need, we don't really need a tank helm at all, we've already got the SERP which is just better in every way. Oh wow, there's a Verox play skirt guys, that's 437 chests, so the 37th of this little run here. As you can see, it has less range defense by 8, but the range defense doesn't really matter. We're only using this for melee defense in Perilous Moons, and it has +4 prayer, so this is actually an upgrade. That's now our best in slot, so we can alk the Torag legs instead. So we needed to do some Barrows, and after only 37 we'd already picked up the best in slot tank legs. We just needed a tank body. Like I say, it's about a 1 in 90 to see a tank body, so I just continued the grind. We saw a Torag's legs, a Guthan's helm and a Verax skirt at the start. We soon followed up with a Darok helm, which is of course useless, we don't need any head slot items, and then we got an Arim's hood and an Arim's top as well. On 112 chests we got our first dupe, a second Verax skirt, and then 23 KC later we also pulled Torag's legs again, so 4 tank legs already and no body. After our 4th pair of legs, I did an additional 65 chests to get all the way to 200 Barrows done this episode, and in all those 65 chests, I just received a Darok axe and a second Arim's hood. So there's 24 uniques, there's 3 of them that are melee plate bodies that we actually want. At this point, I'd even take the Verax, so let's say 4 out of 24. That's a 1 in 6 chance to hit one of these. We've gone through like 3 refills on the Trident now, we've done hours and hours of fishing, probably 15 hours of Barrows itself, so this has been almost a 20-hour grind so far to come out with just this Verac bottom, which is a bit sad, but we did make a little bit of money of course. We've now passed the 28 mil mark from the Alks and selling all the runes. Pretty decent I guess, but largely disappointed in this 200 chests and we didn't see a plate body. Right gamers, that's 200 Barrows, let's take a break. What we're going to go do is go do one of the Varla quests right now, which is actually relevant, believe me. I want to unlock Camtorum and head to Perilous Moons to grab the melee weapon from there, the Jewel McQueetles. But in order to unlock the fast travel over here, the Quetzal transport system, we do have to do ourselves some Hunter Rumors and open enough of the loot bags at the end to get 10 bird feed to build the station up here, because we don't want to have to run all the way to Camtorum from here every time we want to come and do the dungeon. So yeah, we're going to do the At First Light quest first here for the Hunters Guild. Very short, easy quest. It's on Quest Helper now, and it just unlocks access to the master tier of Rumors, and should mean we can build this bird station as quick as possible. The Guild Hunter Fox is here, and he's injured on the ground, so we need to go around, grab some materials to make a healing poultice, or however you say it, just some leaves from around the place, and some Jerboa tails to act as string. Put some of these tails together with some leaves, heal this hunter guy, and then get him back to the guild, and we'll be able to do a couple of Hunter Rumors. Hopefully it doesn't take us too long, and then we'll have a fast travel straight to Camtorum. And there it is, guys. At first light, completed the Hunter Guild quest. We get 1 quest point, 4.5k Hunter XP, few hundred in herb lore and construction. We always love to see that. So now what we can do is, like I mentioned last episode when we unlocked Varla in the first place, is we can go downstairs, we can right click on people, we can ask them for Hunter rumors, and then once we find a rare material as a drop, we come back here, we get a loot bag, and that loot bag may contain some bird seed. Once we have 10 of the seed, which is stackable, we can make the transport station, head over to Cantorum, and do that new dungeon. So I ran some Hunter rumors. I was sent to a variety of places. We went over to do some red salamanders. I did some Teku salamanders, some dashing kebits, some moths, some antelopes in Varlamore. Obviously, we have no need for the Hunter XP, so we probably won't be doing this too much outside of chasing the log slots in the future, but the contents of these Hunter bags you receive as a reward are actually really good. You get some noted mid-tier herbs. You do get some noted prayer XP as well, which we don't really need. You get some noted raw meat, which would be good for cooking experience, but we do need to finish 25 and 50 Hunter rumors before we're able to cook this new meat. So at the minute we can't use it, I ended up just dropping all that. After 10, you get access to a whistle, which allows you to call your Quetzal anywhere in the world to come pick you up and take you back to the Hunter Guild. Although, of course, we're 99 Hunters, so we already have the cape with unlimited teleports here, so I didn't actually need the whistle at all. It took me 20 rumors to receive the 10 seed I'd need for the flight path to Camtorum, but what is good from these Hunter bags is the noted birds nests you also get. You seem to average about 2 birds nests for each master tier rumor you complete, and these are the secondaries for brews. So in future, when we're raiding or doing Inferno attempts, this may be one of the best methods in the game outside of doing Giant Mole for actually making our brew stack for supplies for PVM. So something to think about. We might come back and do more rumors for that, but for now we had achieved our goal of just getting enough bird seed to get to Camtorum. But now this one is built, and it does link to all the others that are built currently in the game, which includes the one over in town over at the teleport spot, as well as the Hunter Guild, which we can also teleport to. So now we can get around pretty decently around Varlamore. There's just a couple left, but these bottom two don't really currently do anything. Of course, there's the Colosseum telly for when we're an end game player, which is not quite yet. So I'm gonna get some quick basic supplies together and we'll come knock out this quest and we'll unlock Perilous Moons. Right guys, I was ready to make an intro about how we're coming back to get a Dragon Defender to do some melee stuff right now, but there it is on the floor after literally 2 Cyclopses. The quickest Dragon Defender ever obtained in the video game, but that's really good. The next port of call for us is actually going to be something a little bit different and strange. We're going to go do the Defender of Varrock quest. We're going to just simply go and farm the armoured zombies after the quest for the new zombie axe, and that's going to be our weapon for doing Camtorum Dungeon, the Perilous Moons. That with the Dragon Defender, and I'm also going to go get a Salve E as well, or a Salve I, whichever's the melee one. We're going to use that because we currently don't have a Fury or a Glory. We're still wearing our mage necklace. We're going to cut through those armoured zombies like butter. It's going to be so quick. At least it should be, because these zombie axes are 1 in 800 drop. So I'd taken a small break from our Barrows grind for our tank armour with just the legs obtained, and we went of course to unlock ourselves the flight path to Camtorum. Now the next thing we needed to do Camtorum was a nice melee weapon. Instead of grinding out for a whip, which would be kind of boring and repetitive, we've done that before, I thought we'd go do this brand new quest, Defender of Varrock, like I mentioned, because there's a zombie axe that can drop from the zombies at the end as a 1 in 800 weapon, and this thing has both crush and slash on it, which is good because each of the 3 melee bosses in Camtorum Dungeon have a specific weakness, so this weapon would at least cover 2 of the bosses by itself. During Defender of Varrock, this area where all the armoured zombies are is actually an instance, but there are less zombies available, so if you're planning to barrage these to kill them to farm your zombie axe super quickly, it's better to do so after the quest, as there's more zombies to clump up and barrage, but I was simply going to melee them with my Salve and my Dragon Simi one at a time, so it was actually more beneficial to farm this item during the quest when there were less enemies, because we would be taking less damage from the large groups, and also we wouldn't be able to be crashed by other players. Following our really good Dragon Defender luck, I actually got pretty lucky on the zombie axe. We got this at 453 KC at the zombies. Of course, it's a 1 in 800, so only slightly over half the drop rate there to pick it up. With the axe obtained, I simply completed the rest of the Defender of Varrock quest. It's very easy. It's for quite low-level players. You have to go to Camdozel, which is not Camtorum. You have to do a little bit of mining and kill a Chaos Golem. Then you go through some cutscenes. You fight some zombies in Varrock itself. You run around. You find the heir who can wield the Shield of Arav to fight off the zombies. And then with all that done, the quest is pretty much complete, and it's currently a dead end quest-wise, but it should feed into When Gothic Sleeps, or whatever it's called, that's coming out later this year, the big Grandmaster quest of the summer. So at least we're prepared for that one when it does drop, but as for this quest itself, there's really not that much to it. And there it is, Defender of Varrock complete. 2 more quest points. We now are missing only 9, and we get 15k in smithing, which is useful because that skill isn't actually maxed, and 15k more in our hunter. Awesome quest to get out of the way. We have a really beefy melee weapon now. Look at this thing. 107 strength for a one-handed weapon. happen. So we'd secured some tank legs, we'd got our Dragon Defender and our melee weapon, and we'd also made the flight path to Perilous Moons. We just needed to go back to Barrows real quick and get ourselves that tank top that was still eluding us after 200 chests without one. So I'm going to send a couple more of these. Like I say, we ended on a nice round 500, so 200 done at the start of this episode. But I do want a tank body, because I just feel like if we make the Perilous Moons grind as smooth as possible, then it'll just be more fun. And like I say, if we do pull the Guthan's top, then it is at least also a collection log slot. So, you know, there's double reason to be here. Not only is it relaxing content, we also get decent money from the runes at the end. Even though we're not going for reward potential, we still make some good cash. So, you know, it's worth it. It's good for account progression just in the money side at least. So Barrows, again, I covered Barrows earlier, so we'll cut to the chase. After 20 chests, we got our first unique back, a Torag's helm, pretty useless, and then another 26 chests after that one. At 46, we got ourselves some Guthan's legs. Can you believe it? The 5th pair of tank legs this episode. 2 Verax skirts, of course, and 2 Torag legs earlier. Right guys, here we go. Chest number 670 about to drop. This means we've done 270 Barrows this episode already. Getting a tank plate, you should see one probably roughly every 90 KC. So this kill is obviously special because this will be 270, so we should have seen about 3 plate bodies, and we've still never seen a double chest at Barrows. As well as that, our clue luck's been terrible. We've been unable to complete both of these. So let's see if we get a tank plate on this one. If we don't, we need to leave and recharge the trident. Oh my god. Dude, okay, we'll take it. We'll actually genuinely take it. That's, of course, the worst tank plate by quite a long way. Stats-wise, yeah, as you can see, this one has 80 to 90 in all the defences, whereas the big beefy boys, the Guthans, the Torag, and the Darok, have like 120 in all defences, so it's quite a lot more, but this is still better, of course, than the alternative, which would be buying a rune plate body from a shop. So yeah, that was 670 total Barrows. We went and refilled our stuff, like I mentioned, went back for another 30. The only thing we pulled was an Arim staff, but at least this was brand new for the collection log, so at least we'll take those. We're ending this mini grind here at 22 of the 25 log slots complete. Just missing Carol's crossbow now, Guthan's spear, and Guthan's body, which we would have loved to have seen. But all in all, our luck was actually terrible. Barrows uniques are pretty much exactly 1 in 15, so we should have seen 20 uniques here in this grind of 300 chests, but I only received 13 instead of 20, including several dupes. Elite clues from this chest as well, without the elite tier of combat achievements, are 1 in 29, so I should have seen 10 and a bit. Instead, I only received 6 elite clues. Even with juggling, wasn't even able to complete a single one. Also, we only pulled 1 tank body from here when we should have seen just over 3 on drop rate, and like I say, it's by far the worst one. Not complaining, of course, about the Barrows RNG this episode. Of course, we went lucky at the Dragon Defender and lucky at the Zombie Axe, so not everything can go your way. It's just strange to consistently do an activity for quite a lot of KC and still get really bad luck. It's worth mentioning that to do all these Barrows chests, it was probably about 20 hours of Barrows, but also an additional 10 hours of fishing and gutting these sacred eels to get refills for our trident. We went through 4 to 5 full tridents, and every one is over 2 hours at the eels to refill. But as for right now, I don't really mind having to go and do fishing and cooking, because we still need both those skills to get to 99 anyway, so it's not wasted XP. We took about 4 days of real time to do 300 Barrows chests, and in that time we made over 3 mil GP, and we weren't even killing rats and skeletons in the tunnel every chest. We were just doing the bare minimum kill count to get the maximum chests per hour for uniques. So if we did come here seeking money, then we'd actually make even more cash. Right guys, it's off to Perilous Moons. I completely forgot I didn't actually have a melee necklace, so I need to, of course, do some tockle buying and get myself an onyx, make a brand new Fury. Sadly, that's ended up costing us like 3 mil, so pretty much all the money we profited from Barrows. It's an extra shame, because of course we could have just sold the runes from Barrows, the Deaths and the Chaos, to the Tazar place and lost a lot less GP, but I literally just completely forgot that I'd need one. So there we go, there's our onyx back on the account. Right guys, time for some quick inventory updating as well. Just waiting for a yew tree to grow. I think it's time to get rid of this Tome of Fire. We just picked this up randomly while we were grinding 99 fire making. So what I'm going to do is just literally drop these to the main. We could alk it for 12k, which we don't need on this account, but it's nearly a mil if we drop it to the other account. The reason I'm getting rid of those is because I absolutely don't need Mage for Perilous Moons, where we're going now. And then obviously straight after that we're going to TOA. The stats are worse than the ancient book from Clues, which we have access to and is infinitely reclaimable. So everything's set, guys, to go do some Perilous Moons. We can fly to Camtorum because we did the hunter contracts earlier to build the bird station. So here we go, we've got a fast travel here. We've got our melee gear, we've got our weapon that has 2 different combat styles, we've got our Fury back, our Serpentine is completely topped up with charges. So here we are, on Varla, these epic doors to this dwarven city of Camtorum, and just through the back there's an archaeological dig going on, which opens up a dungeon. Before we're allowed inside, we need to help the dwarves. There's a monster on top of this mountain up here. They're called Sulfur Nguas or something like that, and they actually have a new drop of a weapon called the Sulfur Blades, but it's a level 55 attack weapon, so worse than a D-Sim, UIM, so it's not something we'll ever go for unless we want the log slot. But just for this quest we have to come up here and kill this one to gain the trust of the dwarves down there and get access to their town. Now this is actually a new city in here. There's a bunch of awesome stuff. As you can see, there's food stall, jewellery stall, mining stall, herbalist. There's a magic shop which actually has a bigger stock than any of the other magic shops in the game. So you know, if you do need to hop worlds a lot on an Iron Man in bulk to get a load of runes at once, this might be the best shop in the game to do it. There's also a really cool new AFK mining method in here as well, which loads of people are raving about, just down here at this mine at the bottom, and it also awards some prayer XP, and it's similarly AFK to shooting stars, so it might be the new best in slot mining method, but of course we've already grinded 99 mining and 99 prayer, so there's no point us going over there. Anyway, this is the dungeon at the back, Perilous Moons. We just talk to these archaeologists, we go in the back, we'd solve some mysteries, which involves fighting the 3 bosses, and then we get to actually get one roll at the loot chest at the end. So the quest here is called Perilous Moons, but the activity itself is actually called Moons of Peril, just to distinguish it, even though I think that's very confusing. Basically, this is a dungeon similar to Barrows, except there's 3 bosses instead of 6, and there's some skilling activities available in between each boss, so you can make some potions and make some food to recharge your prayer and health. Like I mentioned before when I picked up the zombie axe, all 3 of the bosses in here are melee, and they're all weak to a different form of melee, so slash, stab, and crush. Of course, we have slash and crush on our axe. We don't have a stab weapon, but these bosses aren't super high level, so you can actually get away with pretty much anything here. If you're a high enough level in terms of your combat stats, you can actually just do all of these with like a D-sim or a whip. But I figured it would just be more interesting and a reason to go for a collection log slot to get the zombie axe first. The quest itself is pretty much just a tutorial of how to do the dungeon itself. You build some campfires around the dungeon, which you can then go back to and use later when you're doing runs, and you can get some really, really high level food. And then the quest introduces you basically to all the different skilling nodes available inside this dungeon, so it sends you to kill a lizard and to catch a fish, and it also teaches you about getting yourself vials of water and filling them with these grubs available inside, which makes these amazing combined prayer and super combat potions, with an even larger defense potion buff than a super combat. After being introduced to all the mechanics of the dungeon, we're sent to do a little bit of lore. We go outside, we speak to the magic shop person in Camtorum to get some magic talismans. We come back inside, we use those to locate a source of power, and that source of power ends up being a friendly ghost who's going to help us defeat the 3 Perilous Moons and get our goodies from the chest at the end. Now this content's actually really, really good. It's definitely higher requirements than Barrows by quite a long way, but the loot you get at the end is better than Barrows gear, so I guess it does make sense. There's only a couple of unique mechanics that you actually have to be aware of in each of the boss rooms. They're very, very easy, honestly. First, there's the Eclipse Moon, who likes to become invincible and shoot fire at you, which can be avoided by walking behind his large golden ball. I guess he's Jasper Carrot. He also has a special phase where clones of him will appear around you, but he can be blocked and parried with an instant attack by simply facing his clones as they spawn. This is really good if you bring a really slow, hard-hitting weapon like full Darox or a Crystal Halberd or something, because the attack speed makes no difference. The second boss, the Frost Moon, is normally the boss you do second, because you can attempt the 3 bosses in any order you like, but the Frost Moon is located in the middle of the other 2. And the Frost Moon has icy pillars that fly around the room that you have to dodge, and then run to braziers on each sides and light them to warm yourself up and get rid of a frost debuff, which can stack and cause you to miss a bunch of attacks. And then it also has a second phase where it takes your weapons off you, and it forces you to kick some blocks of ice to get your weapons back. The final boss, the Blood Moon, very, very simple. He has 2 little attacks that you can dodge by just not standing on certain tiles at the right time, but the difficulty with the Blood Moon is actually just his basic attacks if you're not prepared with a high defense level and good gear. He has a very, very punishing lifesteal effect, so if you're in low defense gear, suddenly he might hit you like a 30 out of nowhere and then just heal for like 60. And here we are, guys, with all the Perilous Moons defeated. We come back here to the lobby, speak to the archaeologists, and we'll be able to finish our quest. But what we can also do after we finish our quest is go open the loot chest, because we have killed all the bosses once. So there we go, really a good quest, a really cool dungeon as well. We of course get 2 quest points, access to the dungeon, 40k Slayer. Pretty good, but I guess you do need reasonable armor to defeat the bosses, so you couldn't come here at level 3 really. We're now over 300 quest points as well. And here we go, guys, drum roll, our first claim of the lunar chest after completing the quest. Some maple seeds and some prayer XP in 2 different forms. Guess I'll go plant 2 maples and then we'll come back and we'll start grinding this for good. So how the loot chest here works, there's basically 3 item sets. It's a 1 in 56 to see an item from one of the sets, and you can receive, you know, a double or a triple chest if you get lucky. So it's around a 1 in 19 to see anything from here of these 12 uniques. 3 sets of 4. You'll always receive the 4 pieces in some kind of order, and then once you've received everything once, you'll start getting them completely randomly after that. What we're here for, though, is these jewel McQueetles, like I mentioned, because this is going to be our stab weapon, and pretty much once we pick this up, we can go straight to TOA. Once we do hit the Blood Moon Moon roll, it'll be a 1 in 4 to receive this, and if we don't receive it, then the next time we hit the Blood Moon roll, it'll be 1 in 3, etc, etc. If we do pick up the Eclipse armor as well, though, the top and the bottom, that'll be really good, because we don't currently have a range set up, and we're probably going to go to tier way with Black D-Hide otherwise, so it would be nice to also see that range set, because then we could wear that for its melee strength bonus and have less switches. So I set out to get ourselves the dual machetes for a stab weapon for TOA, so we could go for that Fang, and I did 32 chests on our first little session of grinding here. Took quite a few hours to do that, didn't end up getting anything in 32, had a little bit of AFK downtime after that, so I decided to sit outside the dungeon at the Sulphur Nagwas and try and farm the 1 in 450 Sulphur Blades I mentioned earlier, just one for the log slot and they are AFKable. It took me 526 KC to pull the weapon, and I pretty much alked it straight away after. Went back to start off doing some more lunar chests at chest 33, even though we hadn't seen any uniques yet. The commons here are really, really good for Iron Men. You get loads of noted water orbs for crafting XP and money, and you get a crazy amount of tree seeds. You also get some herbs, you get some swamp tar that you can combine with the herbs for easy herb lore XP. Anyway, I came back after doing a bunch of farm runs along the way, and we got our first Perilous Moons item at 44 chests, which doesn't sound like a lot, but I think I was doing 6 to 8 per hour potentially, because of course you're fighting 3 bosses. But yeah, 44 KC. We actually pulled the melee plate body first, the Blood Moon chest. Speaking of that though, 4 chests later we did actually pull the dual machetes we came for, so here's the clip of that. So within 48 KC I'd already had everything I'd kind of come for, but it's customary of course to do a back-to-back in places like this, so I attempted another chest number 49. Would you believe it, I got the third piece of the blood set within 49 KC. We pulled the helm straight after. Now this was kind of crazy. I hadn't come here expecting to go for the full blood set. Now of course if you do wear the entire set with the melee weapon we were here for, it does give you a set bonus of slightly more DPS, and since we'd already picked up 3 of the 4 pieces and there was no chance of duplicates to go for that 4th, I thought I might as well just stay here and just go for the last piece, the Blood Moon legs, just for the memes, just to see if it would be actually any good for DPS in TOA. So I continued to do more chests. Didn't see anything until chest 67 next. That was a crazy one. We got our first double chest ever, and that was the Range Helm, the Eclipse Helm, and the Frost Mage Body. Now neither of these items I needed. The Frost Mage stuff has the same stats as the Arims we already have, but with worse defenses, and I didn't really want a Range Helm switch. We'd be camping the SERP, so I did drop over both of those to the main, which was really nice, so we put that towards bonds for the series. At this point I'd got my runs down to around 6 or 7 minutes each, so I was getting about 9 runs an hour, and in 10 more KC after that double chest we received the Atlatl, the ranged weapon from here that uses your strength bonus for damage. Didn't think that would be useful either at all, because of course we've already got a blowpipe, so I dropped the Atlatl over to the main as well for more bond money. With the tree seeds from here though, I was leaving incrementally to do farm runs, because of course we still need farming. We're only in the 90s with like 99 one day, so it's nice to do it passively through PVM like this. It'll reduce the chances of needing to grind out tithe farm one day in the future. I ended up doing a couple of Hesperies thanks to growing so many trees and getting Hespery seeds from the trees we grew. Didn't end up getting anything of value, but of course it's still worth doing because you get over 10k farming XP a kill and a minuscule chance at the farming pet that we're also still missing. Hey guys, just thought I'd check in. Look how much these dual machetes wreck this boss, the Blue Moon. For those of you who didn't know, there's actually a weird new mechanic in this dungeon where the 3 bosses have a new system called armor, where they either take more or less damage from every individual hit splat you do to them, which means using this machete thing here, which is not only crush, it also does 2 hit splats. It's a 4-tick weapon, it hits twice, you're getting 6 or 8 extra damage, assuming both of them hit, so it's so much better than using the zombie axe on crush, but for the same reason, it's really bad at the Eclipse Moon, which is weak to stab, because that boss actually takes, I think, 3 or 4 less damage from each of your hit splats, so this one gets reduced twice. So yeah, it's a very interesting thing to cause you to kind of bring different weapons here. As you can see, weapon-wise there, we are using this one for this boss. We are still using the zombie axe primarily for the other 2. We could do with a better weapon, but of course, we're only here as a stopgap to go to raids and get our fangs, so yeah, don't mind this dungeon. Really good fun. This should be chest 99, I think. Worth mentioning as well, these battle staffs are not from here. They're from the 120 per day we can claim for having done Varrock Elite Diary. I'm just claiming those and stacking them up because we are getting ourselves noted water orbs from here. So when we are done, we will combine these and make some water battle staffs, make a bit of money, and also make a little bit of crafting XP. And we're also getting some herb lore XP. It's not a lot, but we have gathered over 1,000 herbs here in these 100 chests. We're just leaving the soft clay and the prayer stuff on the ground. But yeah, in one more chest we'll be on 100, so maybe that'll be a lucky one where we'll see our Blood Moon bottoms and we'll be able to leave. So our first 100 100 chests, we're pretty lucky. We were up on a couple of uniques, but sadly our luck tapered off. 6 more chests later, we got ourselves the Frost Spear, which I hadn't wanted to see, because this is a nice mage weapon for auto-casting Ancients, so maybe in future we could have come back and got this for Slayer. But now we've had one of these, we no longer have the no-dupe protection on this part of the Frost Moon set, so anytime in future we want to come back and actually pull this spear, we have to first pull all the other pieces of the Frost Moon, and then it becomes completely RNG like Barrows, so we could go hundreds of chests now and not see this again. Then we didn't see anything else after this for another 31 chests. It took us till 137 to get ourselves the Blood Moon legs that we wanted, and we were finally done with our set and finally free from this dungeon. Oh, no, wait, guys, there it is. 137 lunar chests, and we've got ourselves now the entire Blood Moon set, which is amazing. Looking super stylish. We can take use of this set bonus now, in theory, in TOA. We'll at least try it out, put these bad boys on stab, and see if we can actually get through some raids. Like I say, may get rid of all 3 pieces of the armor. We only really came here for the weapon. We might end up just camping full D-hide when we're meleeing, because, you know, the set bonus isn't incredible, but I do just want to go test it out just for the bants. That's why we stayed here this long. 137 KC, like I say, and as you can see, we completed the full melee set, and then we got 2 pieces of the range set, sadly not the 2 we wanted, and we received 2 pieces of the mage set. We don't want any of those. It looks really sweet. For those of you not in the know, this is degradable, it's very expensive to repair, but as you can see, this has 4 melee strength on the top and 2 on the legs, which is the same as Bandos gear. It just has way worse defenses, and it obviously has that expensive upkeep cost. But for now, we're done here at the Perilous Moons, and we'll go do some resupplying, some skilling, and then I'll see you guys over at the raid, and we'll try and get that fang, and then we'll replace this thing that we've just grinded like a week for to pick up as our best in slot stab weapon, and then we can go to Chambers for Prayer Scrolls, Gauntlet for our Crystal Armor, and then go for the Inferno at some stage. So that was Perilous Moons finished, or at least I thought. I made all the herbs into various things. I used the Irits for super attacks, and I used the Harrowlanders and the Swamp Tar for Harrowlander Tar. And the final Harrowlanders that I didn't have enough tar for, I'd simply made into regular energy pots with bars of chocolate you can buy from the Grand Tree. All the herbs combined gave us 142k total Herblore XP, so slightly over 1000 Herblore XP per chest, which is really, really nice. But of course, I'm only doing maybe 9 chests an hour, so it's about 9k Herblore XP an hour banked. So it's less than Herbivore, not a brand new best in slot Herblore XP an hour method, but still really, really nice for the account. And also with all that, of course, there's loads of tree seeds and farming. We did a bunch of farming throughout, so I couldn't really work out exactly how much farming XP we got. Didn't need our Verax anymore because we were done with Perilous Moons, so I got rid of it. I alked both pieces, and we dropped the remaining 30 maple seeds I had left because I didn't want to wait for 5 days to plant the rest of these. And of course, maple seeds are terrible farming XP, so I wasn't really too sad about dropping 30 of them. Now, I did say I thought I was done with Perilous Moons, but what actually ended up happening after I processed all the materials from all the chests and also did a bunch of fishing and Zulrah to get enough scales to fully charge everything up and be raids ready, they actually dropped an update to the game which added some combat achievements to the Perilous Moons that I'd completed the week before, so I did have to go nip back to Moons for another 10 KC. Of course, I'd already alked my Barrows armor, so I'd lost a lot of defense. They ended up just wearing this Blood Moon set instead, which has almost no defenses, but all the combat achievements were fairly easy, so it didn't take too long to do them. The most difficult one was probably killing all the bosses with only a D-Sim, mainly because it was bugged when it was released, so you had to actually do it twice. I'm sure they've patched that by now. And then there was another one where you can only kill the Eclipse Moon with his kind of spinning around you auto-retaliate ghosts phase. That was really easy, you just have to remember not to hit him throughout the fight. Either way, I did 10 runs of Moons, we knocked out every single combat task, dropped my Zombie Axe because we no longer needed it, because we were done with Moons and we'd be using the Dual Max exclusively in TOA, and then I went to Aviancies for Addy Bars to make some bolts, because we'd be using Ruby and Diamond bolts there as well. So that was that. We'd spent 10 days total grinding away, doing Barrows and Perilous Moons achievements, getting things together. We were finally ready to go to the Tombs of Amascut raid and attempt to earn our Fang in our long-term goal of using this at Chambers of Xeric and other places like Vorkath in the future to basically stepping stone us all the way to that Infernal Cape one day. Our inventory was subject to change, of course, because I didn't really know what I was doing on this account. There's no real guides for a crazy, no looting bag, bring all your items, Ultimate Iron Man like this, and I wasn't super experienced at doing TOA. I've done it a couple of times when it came out back on my main, so I kind of know all the bosses generally, but I wouldn't say I actually know what I'm doing. So all the invent here is subject to change, but as you can see, we've got our full Blood Moon set, which we're going to go try. I can't imagine it being super good, because like I say, I think the set bonus increases your DPS by 1/12 on average, obviously just for melee, so that's quite a lot of switches to bring just for a tiny increase in only one style of damage. So we may get rid of that very, very shortly after starting, but first we had to come up with a set of invocations which would give us at least 50 raid levels, so it would be eligible for this to be called an entry mode in the first place, and so we could roll both the Lightbearer and the Fang, the two uniques from this raid that do drop in entry mode and above. So that was that. I just jumped in blind into TOA. I tried a bunch of different setups for raids, different gear setups, different orders of the first 4 bosses, different invocations. I think in my first maybe 10 attempts at the raid I probably failed half of them, but I did eventually sort of fall into a stride, came up with a decent order how to attempt each of the bosses in this raid. There's 4 bosses at the end of each of 4 paths in the main room, and then once you've defeated all 4 of those you can go in and take on the final boss, which is a 2-stage battle. Now for the first 4 bosses you do earn some supplies after you've defeated 2 of them, and then you earn supplies again after you've defeated the next 2. So I'd need to decide on the easiest 2 bosses to take on first, and then we'd be given some supplies including some smelling salts which act as an overload potion, and then we'd have much higher combat stats to take on the next 2 more difficult bosses. So starting out I went to Zebak first because I was ranging with ruby bolts and a rune crossbow, so a lot of our damage was coming from those 100 hits from the ruby specs, and there's no real difference in the amount of ruby specs you do and the amount of damage they hit, whether you're overloaded or not. So the very first boss was always going in and killing Zebak with ruby bolt specs, and then switching to just the blowpipe when it got to low health. Second boss I decided to do before earning our supplies in the raid was Kefri, a very simple insect boss that you can melee. The main reason I picked this boss to do earlier in the raid rather than later is that I feel like Akka's probably the most difficult boss, so I definitely want overloads for him, and also the Baba boss, the big monkey, you do take a fair bit of damage while fighting him, even if you do it perfectly, because there's a lot of chip damage, whereas if you fight Kefri, you actually take no damage if you move out the way of falling fireballs and also pray right. So I did Zebak first and Kefri second, and then with those 2 down I'd be given a bunch of overloads, free brews and restores from the supply guy in the middle, and then I was able to use those supplies on the more difficult bosses, and then finally kill the wardens and loot the chest. Probably worth mentioning that every one of these 4 initial bosses has a puzzle room or a path room before it, which is basically either some puzzles or some combat. It ranges from literally stepping on some Simon Says style puzzles to arranging mirrors in a mining room to killing waves of monkeys to filling up jars to water a tree. It's all very, very simple stuff, and it's largely covered by the Tombs of Amascut plugin, so I'm not going to talk about it too much here. The one that is worth mentioning though is the mining puzzle room just before Akka, where you do have to place a bunch of mirrors, mine a bunch of walls, and then use your mining skill and pickaxe to do damage to a pillar in the centre of the room before you're allowed to fight the boss. Now in the mining puzzle room there's these statues where you can store pickaxes that I've mentioned before on the account. Now of course we won't be allowed to use these on bag only because it's just a direct storage where you put something in, take it out again. However, if you don't store a pickaxe here, this instead generates unlimited bronze pickaxes, as you can see here, which you can drop on the floor and go get another one out. So because of this I kind of started off raiding treating this as just a bronze pickaxe spawn, using this free bronze pick for the puzzle, but I did eventually think that this was a little bit against the spirit of the account perhaps, so I instead after a handful of raids just bought a rune pick from Prith and just brought it inside every single raid and held onto it the whole time, wasting yet more invent space. So like I mentioned, once you defeat your first 2 bosses in TOA you do receive some free supplies like brews, restores and overloads, and then once you defeat the next 2 and you've beaten all the basic 4 path bosses in here, you once again receive some more supplies to prepare you for the final boss, which is a really long fight of like 3 different phases. It is worth putting out there though that the supplies you do receive from the helpful spirit in this raid are given to you inside a single inventory space container, kind of like a pack, but sadly this is completely unavoidable on the account. You can't just accept like a single overload and maybe a couple of brews that would fit in your inventory and move on. If you are to select any of the supplies you have to be given them in the container, so for just for the sake of argument we're calling this just part of the TOA experience. It's unavoidable. If not, then we'd be pretty much limited to just doing entry modes, maybe at best a 150 normal in the future. We'll never be able to come back and really push up those invos, and of course as soon as you do leave the raid then all those free supplies just disappear from your invent anyway. They don't affect the account in the long term or any of the activities we can do outside of here. They're just a part of the raid, so it's something we have to do. Anyway, with that disclaimer out the way, it's time for the final boss, a 3-stage fight where you fight some wardens and eventually get into the loot room and see a white chest and leave disappointed. The first thing you have to do is kill an obelisk while taking a bunch of chip damage, then you swap over to fighting an empowered warden. You swap between ranging him and maging him, and in between he drops his heart on the floor, which we've all done in the past, let's be honest. And when his health bar is finally out, you swap to the very final stage of the boss fight. You basically move to the left and right, you dodge these shockwaves that are sent along the floor, and then at certain increments of the health bar, ghosts of the previous bosses you fought appear on either side, and they start throwing their boss mechanics into the mix. So it becomes a little bit of a dance, but at relatively low invocations, everything's very slow. You have quite a lot of ticks to react, so you just move around, shoot the boss, get its health to 0. Pretty simple. Oh, there we go, guys. Our first ever Tombs of a Massacre on the account. We didn't beat the 40-minute timer, sadly. It took us 41 minutes, so it only ended in an 85 level raid. But that's pretty good. You know, we did die once. If we had brews and restores and range pots and super combats, and also didn't get poisoned twice in the first 2 rooms, that would have gone a lot smoother. We did get a death, so no purple, sadly. But let's see what we did get commons-wise. Some battle staffs, lilies of the sands, and dragonstones. Not the best stuff. Could have certainly got a lot smoother. There's a lot of things that we need to adjust inventory and invocation wise, but we got a KC, so I'm pretty proud of that. So not the most impressive raids performance there, but one thing we do get from our first ever clear of Tombs of a Massacre is, of course, the Into the Tombs mini quest is now complete. We just go to speak to some ghosts of the Pantheon gods here in the lobby, and once we exit their conversation, we're rewarded with a simple 50k XP lamp and one more mini quest crossed off our list. As you can see, we're now just missing Hope Spear's Will, which is a goblin one we can't do without completely wiping on the account. That's actually impossible. And then, of course, the Frozen Door to unlock and defeat Nex. And then in terms of the real quests, we still haven't done Path of Glothry, which is super easy, and of course the big Desert Treasure 2 is still eluding us, but we'll do it one day. With the mini quest completed though, I went straight back in, did another raid at the 105 level, but this time didn't die and didn't fail the time limit, so it was actually a 105 at the end, and as you can see, we get ourselves a 1.66% chance of seeing a unique instead of about the 1.4 from dying in the previous raid. And of course, if we do see a unique in entry mode, then it's a 50-50 shot whether it's our Fang that we want or a Lightbearer ring, which would be a little bit disappointing. Speaking of disappointing though, I did decide to get rid of this Blood Moon set after just 2 raids. Like I say, the set bonus isn't super good, and of course anytime we were camping the full Blood Moon set I wasn't wearing my Serp helm, and there's a couple of rooms in here where you either get poisoned or venomed and it can really throw you off, especially like the monkey puzzle room and stuff, so I figured just for convenience and ease of learning raids, I'd just get rid of it. So it went the way of a lot of the extra items we have on this account that don't have the most impressive alch prices. It got dropped over to the main for that sweet, sweet bond money. So with our gear adjusted, I went to adjust the food we were bringing as well. For these first 2 raids, I was just bringing in sharks, of course, from the minnow spot. But I did decide, since earlier this episode we'd got the cooking level to cook moonlight antelope meat, we'd just head back and do a couple more hunter rumors, get ourselves to a total of 50, and unlock those hunter meat cooking recipes for the account. So I really quickly banged those out and then cracked open all 30 reward bags at the same time. In the meantime, we also received the Huntsman's Kit for the collection log, which is of course a container to store your hunter items that we're not allowed to use. They also received a blueprint for an upgrade for the Hunter's Whistle thing, but of course didn't make use of that because we do have that mounted 99 Hunter cape already. From these 30 bags though, I did receive 24 of the bird seed you used to build those flight points around Varla, and I actually only needed 30 seed total to build the last 3 just to finish them all off, so I actually did an additional 7 rumors to get the rest of that 6 bird seed, went round and built the flight path at the Colosseum, at the new agility course that's as of yet unreleased, and also at the City South Temple where you do your Sunfire rune crafting, but I doubt that's something we'll ever do. Funnily enough, I'd come here to do these rumours just to unlock a recipe for better food, but in doing so I ended up with a stack of bird's nests which I wanted to go turn into brews. So I headed off to the Slayer Tower. I did some off-task necreals. Now these ones aren't the greater necreals you find in places like catacombs, these are regular ones, and they have a much worse drop table for alkables, but a far better drop table for all kinds of important seeds for Iron Men, including toadflax seeds for brews, and of course snapdragon seeds for the restores that go with them. So I farmed a whole bunch of brews and restores from doing necreals, and at the same time while all that stuff was growing, I did some thieving, worked on a little bit of thieving. We started off at 92, I just grinded out 93 at Ardy Knights, the most humble and easy to do skilling in the game. There we go, guys, zooming through some more TOAs. There's TOA number 6 completed on the account. We're smashing these. I'm actually enjoying it now that it's entry mode. No purple there, as you can see, but we'll see if we can get any garbage. Now, of course, if you don't roll the purple, you can roll one of the tertiary drops still, one of the Keris Partisan gems or the thread for the rune pouch. And let's see what we get from our common chest. Anything? We get a cache of runes, that's for the collection log, and 5 Ranarr seeds. But let's crack the runes, see what we get. 3,000 deaths. That's crazy. I'll go sell these to Ali, sell this gold or somewhere else. We'll come back and do some more. So guys, I'm sure as you can see this video is already getting super long, so let's do some quick fire progress real quick. We did some more TOAs, of course. We did about 8 of them in total, at which time I went to do a couple of Zulrah just to get some more scales back quicker than fishing, because I already had my gear on me that I could kill it with. Did about 10 KC, no drops of note, but I did get a little bit of Herblore XP, including some more noted toadflax, so I had to go back and do more Hunter Rumors to add to our brew stack with those. We did end up getting the headpiece from the Guild Hunter outfit, but of course we don't have the costume room, so we can't keep skilling outfits on this account, so I just dropped that. that, sadly. Doing a combination of sharks for our big shark and eels for scales and minnows for food for the raid, we did get ourselves 94 fishing, which is always good. I love doing fishing. It's one of my favourite skills. From doing all that, we snagged a few medium clues, got a few new collection log slots like a pink boater and a Bandos cloak, but once again, we don't have a costume room, so these ended up on the ground as well. We did about 13 or 14 TOAs in total, at which time I stopped to do a full day of mining amethyst for about 4,000 amethyst darts for our blowpipe charges. This will last us literally weeks and weeks of PVM, so it's certainly worth just putting aside one day to work on this, since we do have the mining, fletching and crafting skill to make this ammunition. For my 18th TOA, I started actually doing some duos with a friend of mine just to see if it was more interesting or more fun, but of course we had the same kind of luck I was having solos, ended up not getting anything, but at this point we were really far into the video already and I realised I hadn't yet got ourselves a 99 this episode, which has actually become kind of strange for this series. I usually get 1 or 2 per episode it seems at the moment, even though we are so close to maxing, so I thought I'd stop and we'd send that 93 thieving we got earlier at the Ardy Nights all the way to 99, just to grind out a cape for you guys, because everyone loves to see a 99, and also it looks pretty good in the thumbnail. And there it is, guys, briefly missing the fireworks of level 99 thieving coming in. There we go, gotta get ourselves 199 per video at least, surely. That's a really, really big one, because of course with that we can now buy the thieving cape. Like I mentioned, the big reason to go for this is because you can do it at any time. It only requires 2 inventory spaces for the coin pouch and your cash stack. Speaking of which, we're now at 32 mil coins from this grind, so we made a few mil, which is nice. The big benefit of the thieving cape, it gives you a flat 10% success chance when thieving targets, which does of course include those vias that we don't have 100% success chance on. If you're level 99 and you're not wearing the thieving cape, you're about 50-50 chance to successfully thieve from a via, but with the cape on that makes it a 60% chance to thieve from a via, so a lot more successful thieves per hour and a lot shorter of a grind to grab some blood shards in future. And there's also a bunch of other things in the game that you can currently thieve, like they're going to add medium clues to gnomes and maybe make paladins better, so it's a great time to get ourselves a thieving cape. There we go, got ourselves a little bag of tricks looking around with our swag. So really, really happy with that one. It only took me, I think, about 4 real days to go from 93 to 99. It was about 30 hours of just clicking in place. You can just watch shows, play other games, and it's almost 200k an hour. But yeah, super happy with this. I think this is one of the cooler looking capes in the game. We will certainly be back here one day to purchase one of these and use it for a blood shard. It'll be really useful in certain raids, maybe even in chambers coming up, so being able to thieve that quicker is just really, really good for the account. Well, hey guys, there's another TOA coming in. Let's take a look. Our unique percent, 1.3% chance, but this is only a 55. I wanted to just go super easy. Because like I say, I've not really had too much chance to play in the last week. See if we get anything unique though. Oh, the Breach of the Scarab. That is the best possible gem, I think. If you put this inside the Keris Partisan, it turns it into the Keris Partisan of Breaching, which gives you an accuracy bonus against all calphites and bugs. So you can use it at KQ, but you can also use it inside here in TOA, which is amazing. So guys, worth mentioning the Keris Partisan here. You come to Selim, who replaces Osman after you've completed all the desert quests here in Alcarid, and he just sells you Kerises for 60k each, so it's a really, really nice disposable item. The only issue is, if we come back to this guy and we buy another Keris Partisan, it won't have the gem in it anymore, as you can see. We either have it or we don't, so whenever we get rid of this Keris, i.e. when we get our Fang and we're done with this raid, then sadly we can't come and reclaim the gem, which is a real shame. It would be nice if this guy added the gem version to his store or something, but it is a really, really cool item. It has a 33% additional accuracy bonus, which is insane if you consider the fact like a Slayer Helm is 15% or a Salve is like 20, 33% more accuracy, and like I say, we should hit almost every single time on Kefri, so it's certainly going to be better than the dual max against that boss specifically. But yeah, it will mean to bring this in, we will also need a defender switch as well to make the most use of it, which is going to narrow our inventory down a little bit more, but I think it's something we can certainly do at least on entry modes because we're not going through all our supplies anyway. So that's the third thing on the collection log for TOA. We started with a cache of runes. I also got a thread of Eladinis, but I can't use the rune pouch, so didn't even bother mentioning that one. We now have the blue gem for the Keris, and on our very next raid, the 20th TOA entry mode I attempted, I got my first ever purple in a raid on RuneScape. Oh! Okay. 50-50, it's a Fang and I'm done here. It can't be anything that's not a light bearer or a Fang. Surely a Fang. Please! Let me... I don't think I'd keep a light bearer. Oh, okay, 50-50. We'll take it. Hey, 20 KC, that's really good. So I was now a proven purple getting raid doer with 20 KC in entry mode TOA. I just worked away for the next few days and weeks doing more and more entry modes on my own, with a small spattering of 150 pluses in a duo with my friend whenever he was available. On the side I was fishing, of course. We're always fishing to refill our combat gear because we always need so many Zulrah scales to do PVM. Every handful of raids takes us a few hours of fishing to refill everything. The plus side of this though is all the fishing and cooking levels we were getting this episode for free. I surpassed 93 cooking after getting 92 cooking earlier at the eels in this very episode. I also surpassed 94 and 95 fishing before I actually managed to get that big shark we were also going for on the side. That took me over 7,000 sharks, even though it's supposed to be a 1 in 5k. With that in the log, I mounted it and stuffed it and put it in my house forevermore in that same room that still contains our KQ head from the Desert Elite Diary. Speaking of side projects, I was also slowly working on some agility and some downtime, as this is another skill like thieving that you can do with any kind of inventory. You can be completely full on stuff and still run RD laps with no stress. So I got ourselves 93 agility, just wanted to send a level in that skill. On my 40th entry mode solo, I did a 115 invocation, and we got ourselves the Eye of the Corruptor, which is the red Keris gem. It's pretty much only useful if you're doing like an 8-man TOA. You lose the massive accuracy bonus of the blue Keris, but instead you get a special attack which makes the enemy in question take more damage for a while, but you personally can't do any attacks for that duration. So of course, if you're in a coordinated team and you have 7 friends ready to spec, then it's great to use the red Keris, but if you're on your own or even in a duo, it's just a massive DPS loss to even use it. So yeah, drop this thing straight away. The day after I got this red Keris in a solo, my friend and I sent another normal mode 150, and obviously the most predictable outcome that could have happened ended up happening, and here's that clip. Oh, you've got one. Go on. It's a 150, it could be something good. It's a log slot, right? Whatever it is. GL. Oh, you jammy git. Oh. Hey, grats, that's fine. Oh well, at least we've seen something, that's cool. Let's see what I get. Absolute trash. Not to be dissuaded by a little bad luck, however, I just continued to send TOAs. I did some more entry modes on my own. I even did a couple of normal modes on my own, I think 6 or 7, just to potentially prove anyone wrong who might claim my friend was carrying me because he's got a shadow and full ancestral, and maybe I shouldn't be doing normal difficulties. I did do a couple myself just to prove that I can, but like I say, we're literally only here for one item, and getting any other item wouldn't help the account at all where we're going right now, so there's really no reason for me to send normals on my own, but I didn't want to drag my friend down to doing entry modes in his max gear. I was still fishing on the side, of course. We actually hit 96 fishing this video, which is something like our 3rd or 4th fishing level in this one. Because we already completed the big shark though, I was now working on the big swordfish on the side. I ended up getting this the same day as I hit 96 fishing, and then I think the very next day I moved on to the bass and I managed to pull that the day after. So we were done with all 3 of the big fish for our collection log slots, but of course I left the shark mounted in the house because that one's the most prestigious. I decided to end this video on a nice round number of raids, so I did a total of 50 entry modes and 50 normal mode TOAs, ending on 1 red and 1 blue Keris gem, 1 light bearer, 10 caches of runes, which ended up being a decent amount of money selling those to Ali, and a couple of threads of Eladinis, of course, for the rune pouch we can't use on this account. Now, even though on average a raid probably takes me 25 minutes to half an hour, doing this 100 raids took 3 weeks. Now, of course, it could have gone a lot quicker, but every few raids, of course, we have to spend a few hours refilling our stuff. So there were some days where I didn't do any at all, there were some days where I did 1. I think at most I did 8 in a day. I could have done more, but yeah, this was 3 weeks of raiding to do this 100. I earned a fair few combat achievements in this episode as well, almost too many to count because raids just spit them out for you just playing them normally. After finishing the raids, however, I did fish and cook some more just on the side while editing this video and to refill all our stuff to be ready for PVM next time, and I did actually hit both 95 cooking and 97 fishing. Such a crazy amount of fishing and cooking from this episode, but I don't feel like I've done that much because it's all been in service of actually like recharging gear or going for collection logs. Now 95 cooking is an interesting level because if we can get ourselves to 96, then we'll receive an average of 7 scales per sacred eel instead of the 6 we're receiving now. So the amount of scales we get per hour from fishing will go up by like 12.5%, and if we're going back to PVM we use a lot of scales per hour. So that's on the cards for next episode. So yeah, huge cooking gains in this one, and we're only 2 fishing levels away from another 99 cape, so that might be something we grind for when we start next episode. But for this one I'm going to call it done here, guys. As you can tell, tell, it's been over 2 months since my last vid. I would have loved to have finished raids all in one video, but it's just not looking feasible. Speaking of episodic gains, however, we got so much done in this one, it's almost hard to believe. Of course, it's been about 2 months of content, so I guess it does make sense. But we did get ourselves in this episode 18 total levels, which is insane because we were already like 56 levels away from max. Now we're only 38, so we're genuinely getting there. In this episode, of course, we completed 3 quests at First Light, Perilous Moons, and the Defender of Varrock quest. We got ourselves 3 new Barrow log slots to start out. We earned the Zombie Axe, we earned the full Blood Moon set from Perilous Moons, as well as 9 total log slots from that dungeon in total. We also picked up the Sulphur Blades, so I guess that could make 10, but they're technically in the miscellaneous category of the log. We completed the Big Shark, the Big Swordfish, and the Big Bass, which contributed to the 5 fishing and 5 cooking levels we earned this episode. And we went to TOA, and we of course earned the Lightbearer, the Blue Keris, the Red Keris, the Thread of Eladinis, and a bunch of rune caches. Our log slots are now sitting on 499 total things collected, so I'm sure next episode we'll be hitting that big 500 mark, which will be nice. Speaking of the skilling gains this episode, though, we did grind out 7 thieving levels to go from 92 all the way to 99, just to knock out another 99 cape and make a little bit of maxing progress, so that'll be really nice in future to get blood shards. We also randomly got 1 agility level just because it was something we could train while taking a break from raids, and then of course the 5 cooking levels are always good because you continue to burn sharks all the way up to and including at 99 cooking without the cape equipped, but we specifically also unlocked the ability to cook manta rays, antelopes, and summer pies. We built every flight location in Varla, the one we started off at Perilous Moons, and then we also went back, of course, to get some nests and to unlock the recipe for that antelope meat, and we completed the other flight paths to the Colosseum, the Temple place, and the Agility Course place. And of course, from doing all the 100 TOAs we did this episode, we also completed the mini quest Into the Tombs, which gave us a 50k lamp in our hit points, which is useless because we were 99 health anyway, but I guess it helps with leaderboard ranks. Crazy amount of progress in this one. Honestly, I bit off way more than I could chew. This could easily have been 2 episodes. I could have separated TOA into like its own one and then the pre-TOA stuff. Sorry we didn't manage to get the Fang and be done with TOA all in one go, but like I say, it's already been 2 months, so we do need to just get this one out there. I hope you guys are enjoying the series. As usual, there is a playlist available for every episode from episode 1 all the way up to this one, whatever we're on now, 42, 43, something crazy. So if you do want to go back and watch the whole series, or if you're new to this video and you're wondering how we got here, the playlist is available on the channel. Do all the YouTubery stuff if you want to. Drop a like if you want to subscribe. You can also do that. Drop a comment if you have any questions or suggestions. Tips for gear for Chambers of Xeric would be ideal if you guys know what you're doing with this game. Otherwise, I'll see you whenever the next episode drops, where we'll be doing some skilling, most likely getting at least 1 or 2 more 99s to push towards max, and probably going back to TOA to chase that Fang. Anyway, I've talked long enough. This is like an hour-long video already. Take care of yourselves. Goodbye.